can't see me, you Stevie. Wondering how I reach more evolutions than Eevee and make it look easy.
What is up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. All right, today's video, I'm going to be talking about Invincible Iron Man #2 by Jerry Duggan and Juan Frigeri. This issue has a lot going on, but the main thing I actually want to focus on in this issue is Riri Williams. Riri Williams, aka Ironheart, has been going through a lot as of late. We've talked about it in the previous issue, talking about how during the events of Christopher Cantwell's Iron Man number 23 through 25, how we learned that Riri Williams had adopted the persona of the Cobalt Man to go undercover and to buy the 10 rings of the Mandarin, and now she has control of them. It was one of those sticking points where Tony and Riri were butting heads about how to deal with it. Tony thinks that all of the weapons of mass destruction in the Marvel Comics universe need to be put away, hidden away from any prying eye so that no one can ever use them. And while the Mandarin's 10 rings have been out in the wild since his death in 2018's Punisher #1, Riri now has these rings in her possession, and while it seemed like she had no clue how to use them per se, we learn in this issue she actually does know how to use them, but she doesn't just use them willy-nilly as Tony was worried she would. He was worried that she was going to try to use the rings in every single capacity, that they were just going to be out there in the wild. And while he was right about them being out in the wild, because while Riri says they're someplace safe, hidden away, that's actually not true. They're hidden away, yes, but not somewhere safe. They're actually always on her person. She has been studying the rings this entire time. She knows how they work for the most part. She's not a master of the rings quite yet, but she does know how to use their power. When a fight between herself and Iron Man versus the living laser starts going in the wrong direction, she uses the rings to subdue both Iron Man and living laser and make them see each other's perspective, because one of the things that's come up in this issue is that the living laser is under the impression that he was captured by Tony Stark and tortured by him. Whoever it is that's manipulating Tony Stark and the situations around him behind the scenes have made it look to living laser as though Tony Stark did in fact show up to his home and kidnap him and torture him. That is what the living laser saw, and Riri is able to use the power of the rings to pull this all out, to dive into the memories of the living laser and show Tony the perspective that living laser has on this whole situation. She does this using a combination of the black light ring, which allows her to control the dark force, as well as the Mento intensifier ring, which allows her to boost her psionic abilities. And considering she doesn't have any, it's safer to say that it opened up her mind's eye and is allowing her to enact psionic abilities that she normally wouldn't have access to. Either way, Riri is showing that she is becoming very adept at using these rings. As far as we know, Riri has already mastered at least 4 of the 10 rings of the Mandarin that we see in this issue. We've already seen her use the 2 I mentioned earlier, the Black Light ring, which is the Dark Force controller, as well as the Mento intensifier ring that she used to show Tony Stark and Living Laser each other's memories of the situation that they believe is going on between them. But we also see her use the Vortex Beam ring, which under normal circumstances allows its wearer to control the element of air and to project wind blasts, but it also allows its wearer to fly, which we see her use the ability of in this issue. And we also see her use the Matter Rearranger ring. We see her use this to rearrange the molecules and undo the damage that Living Laser did to Tony's part of the Avengers statue. Whatever happens next, we're likely going to see Riri using more and more of these rings, and while I'm not going to necessarily go and call her the new Mandarin, all of a sudden, I think at the end of the day, she is still going to be Ironheart. We gotta remember, Riri is intimately connected to the 10 rings. We know that her father Dune was connected to the 10 rings and was even trying to resurrect the brand during the Riri Williams Ironheart series, so we know that whatever happens next, she's connected to this, and this is something that was always going to wind up happening at some point. She was either going to wind up going up against the 10 rings, or she was going to wind up gaining the power of the 10 rings, and I don't necessarily know where it's going to go from there, but I definitely think we're not seeing the last of Riri and her connection to the organization, the 10 Rings, as well as her control of the actual 10 Rings of the Mandarin. It's not like the Mandarin's alive anymore to come back and take them from her. But while some people are worried that this may lead to her having some kind of a quotey fingers civil war with Tony, while that could potentially still happen, I don't think that's something that's going to happen right away. If there's any beef between Riri and Tony, it's going to happen way down the road. I think it's not going to happen within the next several issues of this comic. I could not see that happening, but I do definitely think the tension between Riri and Tony, especially in light of this new mysterious villain who seems to have gotten under Tony's skin when he brought up the idea of his quotey fingers inappropriate relationship with her, I do believe at some point something is going to come to a head. And while we know for a fact that whoever this person is, who we do get a glimpse of in this issue, but we don't really know who they are, we don't see their face, we mostly just kind of see them overshadowed and kind of from a over-the-top perspective. We don't really get a good long look at the character, but we do know that everything that Tony has thought of that he thinks is going to be his way out of this situation, this person has already thought of. And whatever is going on, they seemingly have some form of a doppelganger of Tony running around, whereas initially Tony thinks maybe it's a life model decoy. Whoever this person is, they either have the ability to look like someone else or project their appearance to look like someone else in some psionic fashion. It could even be possible that the Chameleon is involved in this. And even if it's not exactly the Chameleon, we do know from the Amazing Spider-Man series, Chameleon has the ability to give people his power by way of his disguising serum. So whatever the case is, someone is out there messing with Tony, and they have already taken out one of Tony's biggest secrets. Zhang Wei, a guy who is on the board of directors of Stark Unlimited, who has largely remained in the shadows of Stark Unlimited, but is a guy who basically has control of all the shares that could keep a hostile takeover from going. That guy, who Tony Stark thinks is a well-kept secret, has been taken out as well, and very likely been made to look like Tony was the one who did it, because once again, whoever this person is, they made Tony look like the guy who kidnapped the living laser, so we already know that they have the ability to make it look like Zhang Wei was killed by Tony Stark, which probably is going to explain why in some of the solicits we've seen Tony in prison. But anyways, that's everything I want to talk about with Invincible Iron Man #2. I really enjoyed this issue. I love what Jerry Duggan is doing, sneaking Riri Williams in there, giving her some time. It's one of those deals, I love when writers do this. They write a certain specific character, usually a major character, and they take the time to bring in another character who doesn't have an ongoing series right now and brings them into the fold and gives them a lot of panel time. We've seen this with other stuff. If you're familiar with like a DC Comics Blue Beetle run, that series had a lot of Peacemaker in it, even though Peacemaker wasn't even that big of a deal at the time. And I think that comic helped bring up Peacemaker's stock to maybe, I don't know, say a certain James Gunn back in the day, and hence why he was eager to get Peacemaker into his version of the DCU. Not saying that was the case, but I wouldn't be surprised if that was the case. I like it when writers bring in these characters and try and give them a little more time when they normally wouldn't get it. I like that sort of thing, and I like that Jerry Duggan's doing it very well, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen with Riri in regards to those 10 rings. I'm also interested in what's going to happen with Tony Stark, but I do find it kind of funny that I'm more interested in Ironheart in this series than I am the guy whose series it actually is, though I'm curious to know how the whole thing with him and Emma Frost is going to be going down soon as well. But anyways, if you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to hit 100,000 subscribers in 2023, and I can't do it without the help of you, Earth's Mightiest subscribers of today, as well as Earth's Mightiest subscribers of the future. Also, make sure to hit that notification bell so that way you don't miss any of the videos that I put out. I do videos every week breaking down my favorite Marvel and DC comics, as well as comics from other imprints. Also, don't forget to do the YouTube thing, like, share, all that good stuff, and let me know what you thought about Invincible Iron Man #2. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.